Learn how to create project dashboards in one day, starting on August 9th. Register today at academy.tumbleroad.com.
Hi, this is Trev from Tumble Road, and today we're going to continue on our previous series talking about donut charts when pretty goes wrong. We're going to talk about a special case where what happens when I have a very large number of values that I need to stack rank. Do I do it the same way that we showed you last week? Well, there's some additional tweaks that you need to make to ensure that people really know what they're looking for and they're able to find it. So what's up next is we're going to go into the details and show you just how to do this most effectively in Power BI. So last week we talked about why it was a bad idea to use a donut chart for a stack ranking visualization. And we showed you how you could use this when you have basically a small number of options to look at. So if you have a situation like this, it's very easy to scan. But we had a question that came in that said, well, what happens if I have to show all of the values? How would I best go about showing it that way? Where I have a situation more like this, where I have a large number of options to share and stack rank, and it seems to create some other issues. So for example, what you're doing here on the left side is you're answering the initial question, which is who is the most popular to who is the least popular. And if that's the question you're trying to answer, then this is the perfect way to show it with a bar chart. However, it brings up the next question, which is how am I doing? And if I have to look through this when it's not sorted in any particular fashion, that makes it very difficult to read. So in that case, we advise putting in a second visualization that is sorted by name with a ranking. So in this situation, I can scroll through and see if I'm Hootsuite, for example, that I'm ranked 77th. And then I can come over here on the left side and get to around where it is and see where I am in relative position to others around me. So what we're going to do in this program is show you how to create this second visual with the ranking, and so that you can create this type of visualization. All right, so our first step in creating the visualizations to solve our problems is to basically take our raw data and turn it into a table. We also need to fix a data situation where we have, in this case, I've got a different record for each version of the platform. So I've got all, mobile, desktop intermixed in here. And we basically want to turn this into different columns so that we're only looking at the all values. And then the next thing we're going to do is add a ranking to this. So the easiest thing to do, or the first step to do, is to turn this into a table in Excel so that we can work with it as if it's a database table. So to do that, the easiest way to do this is to select the first cell, like so, and then do Control-Shift-End to select all of the values. And then what we're going to do is go up to the Home tab, go to Format as Table, and we're going to pick one of the formats. I like this blue one, so let's go with that. All right, and because my first row has the headers of the table, I leave this box checked, and it already has the range selected, so we're good there. And we can go ahead and click OK. And notice it turns it into a table so that I can do things like filtering, sorting, whatnot. The next step is, in order to correct the platform challenge that we have and also to add the ranking, is we need to retrieve this data using Power Query. So to do that, we go to the Data tab and we say we're going to create a query from table. So select that. We're in Excel 2016, by the way. And you will see the window pop up for the query editor. And we're going to do one transformation in here to fix our platform situation. And that's called Pivot Column. So what we're going to do is select the column we want to pivot, which is Platform. We're going to go to the Transform tab, and we're going to click Pivot Column. And so at this point, we'll get a pop-up that asks us, what value do you want to be pivoted under the platform columns? And so we don't want service, we want really the shares because we want the numbers. So we're going to change this to shares. Go ahead and click OK. You'll see this show up on the right side of the applied steps. And on the left, momentarily, you'll see your column show up with the values. This is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. And so now at this point, we're going to go back to home, and we're going to do close and load to, because if we do close and load, by default it creates a table within Excel, which is not what we want. We want to load this to the Power Pivot model within Excel so that we can add our ranking. So we'll do close and load to. We'll get a prompt that says table or create connection. We just want to create the connection, and that will create the query and allow us to push this data to Power Pivot. And then we also want to say to add the data to the data model, which is where it actually adds it to Power Pivot. Go ahead and click load, and you'll see it loading data, and there's the statement that it's loaded, so we're good to go there. Alright, our next step now is to go ahead and add the ranking calculation to the data. So for that, we have to go into Power Pivot. And the way to get to that is to go to your Data tab, go to Manage Data Model, and so you'll see the data that we just loaded with it pivoted. And really what we want to do is add another column here that has the ranking. And in order to add the ranking, we have to use a calculation using a language called DAX, which is the base language used for calculations within Power Pivot and Power BI in general. Alright, so here is where we're going to add our ranking. So we're going to select this column, and we're going to go ahead and, just like in Excel, do equals. We're going to use the rank X function to do this ranking. So first we're going to enter in rank. As you start to enter it, you'll see the pop-up, so we'll just select it there and press tab. And we want to add a filter keyword or function in here so that as we're filtering it with a slicer, it filters correctly. So we'll start typing filter, hit the tab again, and then we want to filter over the entire table. So we'll add our all keyword, and we'll just say, I'm going to select all here, and then we'll do a close parentheses, and then we're going to do a comma here, and then the filter expression will be over year, since we're going to be filtering by year. Right, and another close parentheses. So we've got our filter closed out. So now we'll do comma, and the thing that we're going to be ranking is table all, because again, that's the share count that we were looking for. Then there's a number of default values that we're just going to take. 1, 2, 3, so 3 commas. Then we get to the final one, which is a dense versus skip. And this is used when there's a tie in the ranking. So we want to do dense, where basically if there's a tie, it actually numbers 1, 2, 3, instead of all of them being, say, number 1. So we'll go ahead and take dense, and close parentheses. And at this point, we can hit enter. We should see our ranking show up. And we see it calculating. That's a good sign. And there's our ranking. Awesome. So the next thing we need to do is rename the column, because calculate column 1 really just doesn't do it for me. So let's go ahead and select the column and right click rename, and we'll call this ranking. So go ahead and hit enter. That'll rename your column, and then at this point we're good to go. So now we can go back to Excel and build out our visualizations. So we'll go ahead and close Power Pivot. Okay, so now we're back in Excel. I need to go ahead and create our 2 visualizations to show our stack rank. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new tab. And first thing I'm going to do is insert a pivot chart. So we'll go to Insert, Pivot Chart, and we'll see the dialog pop up. Everything looks good because we're getting data from the data model and it shows where we're putting it. So the next thing I need to do is drag this up here to the corner and drag it down so it's tall enough. That looks about right. And then we'll go ahead and start populating the pivot information here on the side. So here we're going to go to Table, And we're going to drag in our service, and we're going to drag in the all. And notice we have a chart, but it's not the right chart we want, and it's not sorted correctly, and so there's a number of things we need to fix here. So the first thing we want to do is change the chart type. So we're going to go up to Design, and we're going to do Change Chart Type. And the thing I want here is a bar chart, not a column chart, so we'll change the type. That looks about right. Go ahead and click OK. So now at least it's in the right direction. So the next thing we want to do is sort it by the number of shares. So we'll go up to Service here, click the drop down. Under More Sort Options, we'll change this to Sum of All. Now notice I'm selecting ascending instead of descending. So you would think it would be the other way around, but ascending will actually give you the most at the top. So go ahead and click OK. Exactly what we want here. So that's looking really good. Now the next thing I want data labels, so I can tell how much each of these items is really composing of the overall percentage. And I really want a percentage here. So if I go up to Design, and I do Add Chart Element, and I do Data Labels, I'm going to select Outside End. Now notice right now it's giving us the raw count of shares, which is really not helpful. We want percentage. So to change this, we go to Sum of All, we go to the Value Field Settings, and then we're going to say Show Values As, and we want this to be a percentage of the column total. And then we also want to format this without decimal places, because by default it's going to show it as a percentage. But 2 decimal places is unnecessary in this visualization, so we're going to go ahead and select 0, click OK, and now we see our percentages in here. And then I'm going to get rid of some things on the chart because they're really not necessary that we need them, such as the chart title. So go ahead and get rid of that. And then we're going to go over to get rid of the field buttons. So now what we've got is a very clean chart here to see our stack rank. And here we can answer the, who has the most to who has the least. But now we need our pivot table so that we can give you the ranking based on, your name so you can look it up. So for that we'll select the H1 cell, go to Insert, Pivot Table. Same thing, we're going to use the data model, and it knows where we're putting it. Click OK. And then here, we're going to expand table, and we want service. In this case, I want ranking. Now notice it's showing me a sum, but because we have only one record per service here, it doesn't really matter. You could use average if you had multiples. But now I've got it where I can select, I can look and see, well, if I'm Outlook, I've got 62 shares. I'm ranked 62, which gives me some idea relative to the chart where I am, and I can look and see where I am in relative stack ranking to others. And then finally, we're going to add a slicer to this so I can select by year. So for that, we're going to go to the Analyze tab, and we're going to say Insert Slicer, and we're going to select year so I can look at 2015 versus 2016. So it's going to throw that here. We're going to drag this up over here somewhere and make this a little shorter. Now notice if I select this, we're only filtering this table at the moment, so we need to change the slicer to connect to both visualizations. So to do that, go to Slicer Tools Options, Report Connections, and then select the chart as well. Click OK, and now when I select this, you'll see both sides filter. So with that, we've given you a way to show how to show the stack rank using a bar chart, so you can see top to bottom how the ranking is shown, and then also giving people a quick way to look up their own ranking. Hope you find this useful. If you do, please share it with your coworkers and friends, and we will see you next episode.